Working for you. A weekly talk radio program which highlights developments of national interest and the activities of your St. Kitts Nevis government. Join host Lesroy Williams as he presents news, views, reports, and interviews about everything regarding the activities of the Team Unity government and the building of our communities and the development of St. Kitts Nevis. Tune in and call in to interact with your government and share your views regarding the upward forward development of your community and our beautiful Twin Island Federation. Working for You is weekly, every Wednesday live from 1:30 p.m. to 3 p.m. on ZIZ Radio, Win FM, and Sugar City FM with rebroadcast on participating stations. Working for You.
Good afternoon and welcome to Working for You. This is the weekly radio and television program where people can be informed about what is happening in the government, issues of national interest and importance. I am your host, Lesroy Williams. Today, we are going to be looking at a very important topic. That is basically the preservation of our history, especially through the keeping of very, very important documents. As a society, it is important that we recognize the importance of the national archives that we have in St. Kitts and Nevis. Today, I am very honored to be joined by Mrs. Victoria O'Flaherty, a name that you well know, a very passionate woman about the preservation of our history. And as you know, she is the director of the National Archives. Sometime this week, I was looking at a YouTube video, and basically it was called, "What Would the World Look Like Without Archives?" A very, very interesting question. Well, we have Mrs. O'Flaherty here today, who is going to enlighten us and show us how important our national archives are. Mrs. O'Flaherty, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, that's right. How are you?
I am very well. It's quite a pleasure to have you on this program, and I've never seen your face light up like that whenever we speak about, the national archives and the preservation of our history, something which you are so passionate about. Now, just for those of us dummies like me, I would ask you, Mrs. O'Flaherty, what are archives? Just what are archives?
Archives are records of historical importance. Mm-hmm. We produce records in all sorts of formats. We produce them for all sorts of matters. Mm-hmm. Going to the supermarket, when you get the receipt there, that's a record of your purchase. However, it's not something that you would keep forever. However, if it's a title which shows that you've actually paid for a piece of land, you're going to take care of that. So records are the important documents that the country creates. And they come to us mostly so far in paper format, but sometimes they come to us in digital format.
Yes.
They come to us as photographs, as maps, as reel-to-reel tapes, like the debates of Parliament from back in the 60s and so on. There are various formats, and we as a National Archive have the responsibility of looking after all these formats, understanding them, making sure that they last as long as possible. One of the problems we fight against is time, because time ruins everything. The exposure to light, the exposure to dirt, the humidity, these are all things that could ruin a record, whether it's on paper, on tape, in digital format, you know, all of these things are
Sure.
things that we need to keep in mind.
Sure.
So records are the historic documents of the country and of individuals as well. If you look at your photo album at home, the video of a christening or a wedding,
Right.
all these are archives.
Right.
They're of a family nature, whilst we tend to have mostly the public archives, but we're beginning to get from time to time little bits and pieces from individuals.
Sure. You know, the other day I was moving, you know, moving from one place to the next. And of course, you know, when you are moving, there are things that you want to throw away.
Yes.
Because we don't realize, you know, the many things that we accumulate over time.
Yeah.
And sometimes you're going through stuff and you're saying, but I don't want to throw this away. I want to keep this. And I came across some of my mark books and mark and attendance records when I was at the college for over the 5-year period.
Right.
And I'm saying to myself, should I really burn this? Should I really throw it away? And something said to me, no. I will keep them. You know why I will keep them? Because one day, one of my students might be the prime minister,
And you'll have his grades.
and I will have his grades or her grades.
Or her grades, right? Right, yes,
You know, and
definitely.
and I will say this is a proud moment to know
Yes.
that, you know, that I would have
Yeah.
taught such a person. So the importance of keeping records.
Yes.
I certainly understand what it is that you are saying. Now, what is the role or the function of our National Archives?
Well, the National Archives is given the duty of looking after all these records of historic interest.
Yes.
Starting from way back, we have a collection that dates back to the early 1700s. Coming into the present day, something that people don't realize, that what is today's piece of paper is
Yes.
tomorrow's archive. Could be something you want to throw away as well.
Right.
But these are things that we're trained to identify early through things like records management and so on.
Sure.
So we are given the task of looking after the records created by all the ministries and departments of government, any parastatal bodies, the schools, the police, the embassies abroad. They're supposed to send records to us as
Yes.
well. So these are things that we're supposed to receive on a regular basis, and out of them we select what needs to be kept. What we really would like to do, and what the law gives us the power to do, is to sit down with the people who create these records and work out with them from day one what they think needs to be kept, so that they're targeted from the moment they're created, and then we can they start looking after them in the department while they're still in use.
Sure.
And they'll come to us in a fairly good condition.
Sure.
Because let's face it, paper is fragile.
Yes.
Digital records are even more fragile,
Right.
although people seem to think that they're the answer to everything.
I would have thought that they're a little bit less fragile.
No,
in
they're
the sense
not.
that you can, for example, store things in the cloud and all of that sort
Yes,
of thing.
you can do that, but the programs that created them are disappearing just like that
Okay.
all the time.
Yes.
So you're going to lose information when an item is migrated from one program to the next,
And you can have cyber attacks and all of that.
and all of that. So in many ways, paper was actually more reliable
Yes.
and more long-lasting. When you look at paper records,
Yes.
you can go back to paper records that are thousands of years old. If you look in Europe, where the climate is, that's one of the problems we have in the Caribbean. The climate is not conducive.
Right.
But if you're looking in Europe, paper records could last for quite a while. But that means that they're safe.
Yes.
The information on them is safe for a period of time. However, scientists and archivists are very much aware that digital records have maybe 10 years lifespan. If they're not migrated and migrated properly,
Sure.
it could be less.
Okay.
It could be a little bit more, but you have to keep doing this migration. And you
Right.
don't know what you're losing in the meantime,
Right.
you know? So,
Okay. So I know that you have worked on a number of projects. What have been some of your past projects? And what are some of the things that you would like to see happen with respect to the National Archives?
we've helped with exhibitions. That's something that we do. Because of conditions in the schools and at the museum, Brimstone Hill, the
Yes.
Eco Park
Yes,
now,
yes.
they launched the exhibition up there and they
Okay.
used a lot of our material.
Okay.
We usually produce copies of our photographs and images and documents for them to use in these exhibitions. They're very good copies. They capture everything on them. The only thing you don't have is the feel of the original, which is a shame, but anyway, at least it's better than nothing. So that's one of the things that we've done over and over again and continue to do and intend to continue to do in the future. Something we did about, 5-6 years ago, was the launch of the Basse-Terre Past and Present website. We noticed that kids from schools would come to us, or at least their parents would come to us begging for information about all kinds of sites around independence,
Sure.
Black History Month, those two times. And we wanted to make sure that people got access, easy access. And we also wanted the teachers to be aware that some of the information was being copied straight out of the handouts we were giving them. And we didn't want that to happen because, let's face it, when you're copying something you don't understand. We were hoping that the schools would pick up on that and that they would start asking questions rather than simply allowing kids to regurgitate what we handed out to them. So there was the historic Basse-Terre website, which covers sites in Basse-Terre, people connected to the sites, any other stories that come with the sites, and even documents that give you bits and pieces of
Sure.
the story. And we also have a special section where we encourage teachers to look up, see ideas of how they can use the material in
Sure.
class. We were also trying to encourage kids doing SBAs to use the material as well. That was kind of like a first step. Look, we have this. Come see us,
Sure.
and we'll show you what else
Sure.
we've got. So that was another big project. Since then, we've been working on, with the help of two amazing volunteers who are no longer living in St. Kitts, but who still contribute to us. Both of them are members of the Church of Jesus
Latter-day
Christ
Saints?
of Latter-day
The
Saints.
Mormons,
Yes.
what it's called, yes.
Yes. Elder Whiting and Sister Case. And Elder Whiting has produced 2 amazing spreadsheets for marriages and for births for us, based on the documents at the health center.
Sure.
These were microfilmed by the Mormons, and we used those microfilms to create the spreadsheet. And Sister Case has been transcribing wills and documents and so relating to land and so on, because they often have a little bit of family history in them.
Okay.
And thanks to them, we have been able to help a lot of people trying to do family trees and
Right.
so on. And that's been an amazing progress for us, and we're hoping that it will eventually result in a website.
Sure.
Because I know a lot of Kittitians are looking forward to that, actually, that we would have a website where they can do genealogical studies and family histories.
Right.
We've scanned a number of newspapers, which we hope will add a little bit of dimension. We've scanned electoral registers. So all these things are ready to go. And we hope that one of these days we'll be able to find the funds to do that as well.
It's always about the funds.
Yes, it always
I
is,
hope you will be
unfortunately.
able to.
Yes. Yeah.
Now, archives and national archives, as you so outlined so well, connected. There's this connection, there's this link between archaeology and history and even heritage tourism and geology and genealogy. So it's a whole, network,
Yes.
if I may call it that.
Yes, it is. Yes. We have had archaeologists come into us first.
Yes.
They might have an aerial map, which the GIS system at, I think, Sustainable Development, Physical Planning,
Right.
can produce. So that they start with that.
Right.
But then they want to know what happened in that particular area. So they come to us for that.
Right.
And we try as much as we can to give them information. Part of it comes from maps that we already hold. Some would be plantation drawings and so on. Then obviously there's deed records and so on. So yes, we do help a lot of people involved in historical research. And this is something that I think is very important because people read history books, but they don't realize that the material came from archives. So whilst only one person has visited the archives, thousands of people have actually used the material from the archives by reading that book. So the impact is more than what might look like we have in the visitor register.
Right. Right.
So there are lots of people who will want to visit. Another one thing that's happened recently, and I'm very happy about this, is that more and more Kittitians are visiting, especially the ones interested in doing the family.
Right. I was just
tree.
about to ask you what type of visitors the archive attracts.
Also, you have people who are celebrating anniversaries. It might be a national thing, it might be a small local thing or a church thing. They come and ask us, do you have anything on these things? Sometimes we can help, sometimes it's a bit too obscure and we cannot help, because archives are funny things. They're produced often by the people in power. So they're a manifestation of power in many ways.
So you can choose to discard what you want and keep what you want.
Yeah.
And so therefore, I suppose, sometimes if you want to erase
That could
certain
happen.
history.
There's a sticker which I like a lot, mainly because it says quite a bit. It says, "Be good to archivists; they can
Yes.
erase you from history." And I have to be careful that nobody takes it too seriously, but at the same time,
It is true.
you should, because you need to have a person who is very responsible to run your archives. You need to have somebody with an open mind, because you don't want minorities to be excluded. You have to have somebody who is willing to talk to people.
Yes.
Because if you don't break out of the whole idea of just collecting government archives, there's a dimension,
Yes.
actually more than one dimension, that will be lost in the history of the people. I mean, we have little churches, and very often they'll come to us and say, my church is celebrating 15 years. Can you help us? we try looking through the newspapers. We don't have the records. We try looking through the newspapers. There's nothing. So if they themselves don't record their own history, or maybe sit with us if we're having like an oral history project, which we can't really do because we don't have the staff. Maybe you could help us with that one of these days.
Perhaps.
And, you know, these sort of things. There's a lot that can be lost. If you look at the official records for the colonial period, for instance, you have government, what's happening in government. You don't have the laborers in the field. You don't have women, no matter what rank. You hardly ever hear of children. You know, these are the silent voices
Yes.
in the history books, which so many historians try to uncover. And what you do is you get a little hint of them. I'll give you an example. One of my favorites is Jordine Wells. Everybody knows of her son. He was Nathaniel Wells, who was the sheriff of Monmouthshire in England.
Okay.
Probably the first black sheriff anywhere in England. Jordine was born a slave, which means her son was born a slave. But we don't know. If you look at her son's birth records, or rather christening records, her name is not there. We found out who she was through his father's will, because he left some money to some of the enslaved who had served him and looked after children and so on. But in his will, she's called Juggy. So what happened? I started looking through the Wells records, and I came across the name Jordine Wells, and I nearly dismissed it because I thought, okay, this is not a name anybody has called to me, you know, has mentioned to me in their research. When I looked it up, it was her will. She had lived in College Street, the lower part of College Street. She had 2 slaves of her own at that point because she had been freed, and she was set up nicely through her former master's will. And just by doing these little discoveries, you can put together not a complete story, but at least something,
Yes.
you know? So now we know who the sheriff of Monmouthshire's mother was. You know, there's a dimension there that
Right.
could have been lost forever, but through these little glimpses, you can
put it together.
Yes, and then interestingly enough, her house was left to her nephews because she felt her son was already looked after.
Right.
And they rented it out, and it was used as a school. So I mean, these are little things that. Local history, you know,
Right.
Personal history, local history, everything can come out of archives. You just have to be patient and search and search and search.
Yes.